Hey guys, welcome to the Lunge Lift podcast. Today we've got a great episode in store for you with Mr. Matt Healy. If you don't follow Matt on Instagram, he's well worth a follow. He's a very funny bloke from Australia who is an incredible all-round athlete. I've been a big fan of his for a while because of his proficiency in the single arm pull-up, which is obviously one of my goals for a long time. And he's incredible at a lot of other different aspects of athleticism, including an 11-second 100-meter time. So tune in to learn about how he went through CrossFit and how his training style evolved from there after his CrossFit career going to regionals, and some funny anecdotes about extreme weight cuts that, are very entertaining if you follow him on social media. But before we get into it, as always, a big thank you to our show sponsors, thetrainingstimulus.com. Please check out the website if you are looking to stand out in the fitness industry and use movement mechanics to upgrade your clients' results. wit-fitness.com. Please check out the website and use discount code LL15 to get 15% off your purchase. And Hytro, use discount code LL20 to get 20% off your blood flow restriction apparel. Right, let's get into it. Matt, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on the podcast. How are you doing today?
Yeah, good. Thanks, boys. How are you?
Very well. We're crossing time zones tonight, so 8 p.m. UK and 7 a.m. in Oz.
Yes,
Is that right?
I am.
Yeah. So you're in the future, and it's only getting worse, is what you said. But Matt, for the listeners who might not know who you are, could you give us a brief intro into who you are and what you do out there in Oz?
I'm pretty boring. There's not much to say, actually. I'm a small business owner, run a gym in Caringbah, got a wife, a kid, done a lot of sport over my life. Nothing really competitive as such anymore. Dabbled in a lot of things. Jack of all trades, master of none. I'd describe myself that way.
Yeah.
And now I just enjoy, I guess, pushing myself in the mental and physical aspect of learning new things. That's why, like as you mentioned, doing the weight cuts, putting on weight, attempting to do this kind of style training and that style. But yeah, just doing a whole heap of things, keep myself busy. You know, as you get older, it's quite easy to become sedentary and just become fucking lazy, to be honest. So
Yeah.
just keeping myself busy, keeping myself active, trying to got a son, little boy, so trying to promote a healthy lifestyle and also just lead by example to my members, you know, and community, I guess.
Brilliant. Yeah, so Matt's being very humble for the listeners' benefit. He went to regionals in 2013 in CrossFit, and since then he's delved into lots of different styles of training, becoming very accomplished in each of them. He's still got great weightlifting numbers, rapid 100-meter times. He can do one-arm pull-ups with weight added and all sorts of other calisthenics skills like freestanding handstand push-ups and the like. So he has been through the CrossFit ringer and come out the other side with some enlightenment, let's say, to focus his efforts into more
And some sore knees too.
some sore knees. Yeah, exactly. So just before we started the call, you were starting to tell us about how you got into sport with a little bit of rugby league. Can you get the listeners up to speed on why your mum stopped you playing rugby league?
Yeah, so rugby league in particular, we're going into those representative years, junior representative years, and I used to, you know, like from having the speed and stuff, I used to be quite comfortable out there, but it got to a point where I was a boy versing large men, and in the school competitions and the weekend comps, versing a lot of, without sounding racist, big Maoris and Polynesians and stuff like that, right? And they're very big. So my mum said to me, "Look, if you don't make 50 kilos going into the under 15s, I'm not letting you play anymore." And so, funnily enough, I didn't make 50 kilos. And so that was the end of me playing rugby league. But once I adapted to sort of finishing, because that was obviously for years something that I really wanted to do. You know, you have the jersey with your favorite player's name on it and all that type of thing. So crushed me a little bit. But once I realized I wasn't getting dropped on my head every Saturday morning, I was okay with the idea.
Awesome.
Once I'd sort of done that, same, yeah, the same thing sort of happened regarding athletics as well. It was it didn't matter how much I trained, how much time I dedicated to it. I was versing, grown men, and so I slowly started to fall back that little bit. I was quite competitive, but I wasn't getting national medals and stuff anymore. And then I just got into more surfing and skating and did stuff in the gym. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I just did a bit of recreational training and just skateboarded and surfed. And then I went into TAFE because doing coaching and personal training was always something that I wanted to do.
What is
And
TAFE? Sorry, Matt.
what's that? Sorry,
What's TAFE?
TAFE is like tertiary education.
Okay.
So it's like another form of university, like after high school. So I already knew I wanted to do my personal training, like fitness course. So I enrolled in that, and one of the teachers was actually the Australian Olympic weightlifting coach.
Blimey.
So he was there, and that was good to hang around him. But I'd be doing sort of basic calisthenic stuff without reading too much into it. And he actually just said to me on a whim, "Oh, you're a CrossFitter, blah blah blah, this and that." And at the time it was like weightlifters hated CrossFit, because they were
Yeah.
all lifting, and the technique at the time when I started in 2009 was quite average, just at best.
Yeah.
And so he was like, "Oh, you do CrossFit, blah, blah, blah." And I just interpreted as him saying I do cross training. So I just was like, yeah, I do cross training. And then he started talking to me about this workout, Fran, right? And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I've never heard of it." He goes, "Go home and watch it." And so I've gone home from TAFE, and I had a pair of rings that I hung up. I was living at home at the time with my parents, hung up a pair of rings on like just this beam, like under our pergola. And I had this shitty old bar with some metal plates. And I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to do this Fran workout." Pick it up. I don't think I even had enough weights. Start doing thrusters, put it down. I'm like, "Holy shit, I can't do this." Get up on the rings, and I was doing strict pull-ups on rings. Didn't even know what kipping was. And I get through probably somewhere in the round of 15, and I'm just like, "Fuck this. This is too hard. I'm quitting." But I'm that type of person that I've quit. I know these people are fitter than me to a degree, and I couldn't let it go in the afternoon, right? So I go onto YouTube, start watching videos, and I start looking into it. I Google CrossFit. Turns out there's only, I think, 2 in New South Wales, or maybe 3 in Australia, right? It was, I think, CrossFit Brisbane, CrossFit Sydney, and CrossFit FX, which is the one that the Commando Steve, from the Biggest Loser show.
Oh yeah.
He owned. Yeah. So he owned that one at the time. I've jumped on email and asked if I can come in and do the fundamentals. So I was about, what would I have been at this time? 68, 69 kilos. I was 19.
Yeah.
And so I've gone in and I've trained with those 2 guys. And that was pretty cool because, I looked up to them and I was like, "Oh, this guy's on the Biggest Loser. He's in the Commandos," that type of thing. Eventually got to a point where I sort of started to like bridge the gap between them. And I was doing work and study and I couldn't quite get to the gym as often as I'd like. So I went to just Fitness First, a generic gym. From there, I was doing furniture removals in between my studies,
Functional.
just to earn a bit of cash. Yeah, and I'd go up to the gym sometimes like 8 p.m. at night. I'd be doing my CrossFit workouts. At the time in commercial and Globo gyms, they hated it,
Yeah.
right? So I used to actually take my own kettlebell, rings, everything in a backpack, right?
Love it.
And that I'd throw my ring strap up over a beam in there, and I'd have rings right in the fucking middle of the room.
Brilliant.
And people are just like, "This skinny guy has got to go." They hated me, right? And then because they had no gear, they had nothing. It was just all commercial equipment. Anyway, they ended up wanting me to go because I'd go up there with friends and I'd coach them, right? And they knew I was a PT at the time, and they were interpreting it as me profiting using their facility and not paying rent. So I think I'm the first person in Fitness First history that they actually cancelled my membership for me. Normally they're taking everyone's money, right?
Yeah.
They're just years and years. But they cancelled my membership. And then from there, I was just down at this outdoor training area where I'd have to keep putting my equipment in and out of the car constantly, and I was training outside. And this guy was sitting in the car watching me train one day, and he came over and asked me what I was doing, and so I told him about it. He said he's got a garage not too far away, like in his house. He lived at home with his mum at the time, and he's got a set of bumper plates and a bar. And I said, oh, I'll come down and do some weights. Anyway, trained with him one time, and I sort of helped him out and went through a few things. And then I texted after. He had like a 4-car garage. And then I was like, texted after. I'm like, hey, mate, have you ever thought about running a gym out of this? And it's his mum's house. She was away at the time. She was in Europe. And he's like, oh, no, I haven't thought about that. But I go, do you want to start a CrossFit in your garage? Anyway, he's like, yeah, okay, sounds good. You know, he was just enthusiastic young guy like myself. Anyway, we start pumping classes out of there. There were so many mornings where I got up to do the morning class and no one came. Right? It was middle of winter. I'd drive there, no one came. And then I'd just sit there, eat my breakfast, and then just do some training of my own. We'd go up, like pretty much hustling at the local primary school, offering free gym classes and everything. Eventually some mums come down, word of mouth spreads, CrossFit began become a bit more popular. And we ended up within 6 months having about 50 members in this residential garage, right? But it got to a point where there's sometimes 15 people in the one class in 2 rows, right? It was like the human centipede. So there's an ass here, a deadlift, right? And I think I was about 20 to 21 at the time. And we ended up like, all right, let's sign a commercial lease. But you've got no rental history, you've got no bank statements, you know what I mean? So my mum had to go up and sign that, you know, if something went wrong, she could sort of, you know, get us out of it or, you know, put the house up. So she was like, Matt, don't fuck up here. This is our house. You know what I mean? So you got to work hard. And I was like, oh, no. And she was pretty confident. Once I sort of put my mind to saying I'm passionate, I'm going to work hard, you know. So I signed this commercial lease and started looking into doing the open and everything. I did this fitness competition at in the Fitness Expo. I don't know if you guys have that over there. Bodybuilders go, dancers, Zumba, every kind of fitness, you know, just to get people there and just promote health and fitness in the industry. And I did this competition with some of the top tier guys, and I came fourth. And everyone was like, "Oh, you're doing the regionals and blah blah blah." I said, "Oh, nah, like I didn't really know about it or anything, right?" So the next year came around, and I've done the open and qualified, but I just sort of scraped in. The way my sort of athletic ability is, the 10-minute AMRAPs and the 20-minute AMRAPs of just simple movements I don't like, right? For me, it's like I can do it, but I don't like that. Okay, I've got to just cop this pain for 20 minutes. There's no separation to my athletic ability over someone else's. It's just heart, and I don't like doing it. Right?
I feel you. Yeah.
So the 10-minute ones where it's like, okay, it's this heavy weight or it's 30 ring muscle ups and I get to have rest and I have the ability to do it over someone else, I much prefer that. So personally, I prefer regionals because everything's just harder. Yeah. Right. So I did the open, just made it, got into regionals, but I'd never done it before, and I just assumed that like I'd scrape in, you know, and just so I've gone into it, and I've just worn all these fucking weird outfits on purpose. So I've worn this little wrestling suit the first day just to have a bit of a laugh, and then the third day I wore Speedos, and that's where I guess my name sort of became a bit more well known. But the first day I finished the first day in third, and I was like, Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm a bit better than I thought, you know.
Yeah.
Second day, I finished in third, but I hadn't really done, to be honest, I hadn't done enough volume. So by day 3, my body was just, and the workouts were hard back then, man. It was like, it was less spectator friendly. It was hundreds of reps of this, massive sets of deadlifts. You know what I mean? It wasn't a spectator sort of friendly sport. It was just CrossFit fucking hammer your body, you know? So I woke up day 3 and I was like, oh my God, I can't move. Like I was like, what have I done, right? But you got to pick yourself up and do it. Anyway, I did probably my worst workout of the weekend, came 20th around that. So I lost my third spot, and I was coming 6th. Went out there, knew I sort of couldn't make it because back then it was top 3. And knew I couldn't make it, wore Speedos, just mucked around, ended up coming like 9th or 10th in this workout, ended up 4th place. And I was like, shit, that was my first year, never done it before. I was quite small and I'm like, I'm going to have a good run at this now. I'm going to put in, started training hard, just like how you were, young male, 22, I was single, started to become a little more popular on social media and that. I'd be out, people start to know you, you're chasing girls, you're drinking, you know what I mean? So I was partying, training, and like you can't do that, right? You can't put in that much effort and drink and go to bed at 4 a.m., lift weights to what my body, I genuinely think that I was sort of have the ability because of my nervous system and from athletics, have the ability to lift weights, which I shouldn't actually really lift to some degree, if that makes sense. My lever length just doesn't like it. So got up to cleaning and stuff, 150, back squatting, 160 for sets of 8, and my knees just were like, no, I'm not fucking doing this, right? So I developed like quite bad quad tendonitis, and I was getting treated just constantly. Every physio wanted to be the person that wanted to fix my knee and get me back to competing at that level. Eventually, I just sort of weighed up. I started to run a new business. So I went out on my own, and I needed to develop a client base. And it got to the point where I was like, am I really going to put this much time into winning 15 grand at the CrossFit Games, right? And push my body and sort of be a bit down, because it got to a point where I was a bit miserable because I couldn't do what I wanted to do training wise, you know? And got to a point where I was like, if I just invest more time in the business instead of myself, I'm going to get more money anyway. Yeah. And I don't really love this. I'm just doing it because I'm kind of good at it.
Yeah.
And and I was just like, oh, I don't care if I do it anymore, you know? And from that point, that's when I sort of branched out in terms of the training that I did. So like you were mentioning before, the calisthenics and whatnot, that's where it started. My knees were sore. So what do you do if your knees are sore? Upper body.
Yeah.
And I felt like a fucking Dorito anyway. So it suited me better. So I realized quite quickly that, okay, I can do all this kipping movement. And no matter how hard I tried in terms of handstands and handstand push-ups, I couldn't do it because I was too stiff. So there's that element of flexibility and mobility that I needed to pursue, which was good because I just always avoided it, right? So if I wanted to be able to achieve these movements, I had to stretch, you know? And so quite quickly, I got the mobility up to a satisfactory level, and then straight away, your body's not fighting against itself. And I started to delve into planches, levers, handstand push-ups and the like. I still did a little bit of weightlifting, and I also sort of thought, what will get me as athletic as possible? And sprinting is a big one. People just don't do it enough. And the transferability from being a fast person into the gym is massive. Like I've trained with a lot of like top level sprinters, and they're not big people, 70, 80 kilos, you know, skinny guys. And they can just go in and just power clean 130 because their nervous system is so efficient. And they want to get up on a chin-up bar. They can all do a muscle-up eventually if you teach them. They're high-level athletes, you know. They're going to learn. So I developed a thing and I wrote an ebook actually on it when COVID came around and I was bored as shit doing nothing at home. So I called it The Athletic Blueprint. And it was pretty much just about my training and what I thought developed the best qualities for an athlete. And what that was calisthenics, sprinting, and weightlifting. But only I just did sort of weightlifting, which would give me the most bang for my buck. So I worked towards squat jerking, which a lot of the Chinese do.
Nice. Yeah.
So it was going to force me to work on my mobility even more, which was going to transfer over to my gymnastics and all help each other. Because I had to do more mobility to squat jerk, it was going to give me better fundamentals on the track to hit different positions. So I'd have better front side mechanics, produce more force on the track, which would mean I'm faster. So I sort of looked at all things and just correlated them all towards the one goal. And that's pretty much how I just fell into doing the one arm chin ups and all that. So it's nothing like I really thought, oh, I have this goal. I want to do a one arm chin up, I want to be able to planche, but I kind of just fell into it and started developing those goals at the time. And then that's pretty much it, really. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Love it.
You go on. Sorry.
No, you go ahead, mate. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah. No, you're right. So then you started asking me about the bulking and the weight cutting.
Yeah, you've got another ebook for bulking, haven't you? What's that one called?
Yeah. So like I said, I'm quite lean. I've always been quite lean, and people always say, I can't put on weight. I can't put on weight and all this, I'm like, what do you mean you can't fucking put on weight? Everyone in the country's fat. So, like, what do you mean? It's obviously not that hard to do. When I was sprinting a lot, you start to, especially at certain speeds, right? I got down to 11 seconds in 100, which is 10 meters a second you're traveling. So the sheer force and wear and tear on your tendons and stuff at your hips and stuff, it starts to become quite intense. So I started to develop hamstring tendonitis. And so trying to sprint, it wasn't the most comfortable thing. So I was like, look, I kept trying to run. I kept getting down at the track and it wasn't really working. I'm like, I'm just going to take a break. I'm not competing. No, I'm not making money from this. It's not my career. Who gives a shit, I'll just do something else for a bit. So I was like, what can I do? I've never put on weight before. I'm not competing in anything. I have no body weight goals. Let's bulk. Let's eat. And so I started doing that the same way I do everything else. Jumped on the cow surplus train. Didn't really look into it too much. Started seeing that the scale would rise. And I started putting on weight slowly but surely. And I was eating to a point where you're sort of almost sick. People think it's enjoyable. It is hard. It's hard work because you're not just eating mac and cookies all day, eating containers and bowls of rice, meat, this, that, orange juice after every meal, Fruit Loops after dinner. I was eating about 4,000 calories to start with and ended up at about 4,500 a day, sometimes more.
Nice.
Went from 78 kilos to 90 kilos.
That's
good.
And there was positives and negatives. I just pick up heavy dumbbells, 50 kilo dumbbells, just muscle snatch them. My bench press went up. I bench pressed 140, something I'd never done for a single. Deadlift, I just do sets of 10 at 200. So I had its pros, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of body weight training, I couldn't one arm chin up anymore.
Yeah.
It was like you had this backpack of fat on you, and I started to develop a bit of elbow tendonitis. So I just scrapped the body weight training. Got to a point where I looked in the mirror, my head was about this big, and I'm like, mate, you've done this wrong. You've just put on way too much fat too quick, right? And another thing my members would always say, I'm pretty, how do I say it? I don't sugarcoat things. I'm quite honest. People don't really like it because it's a reflection of their own behavior, I'm just telling them what their actions are doing and their behavioral choices aren't favorable. So a lot of members you lack sensitivity, you lack empathy and the like, right? Two things that would always get thrown in my face. You don't understand. You don't have a kid. That was one. When I'd say you've got to get to the gym and training in the morning, they love that one. Another thing, you've never lost weight. You've always had good genes. You've always been lean. So 2 things I did. Fucking had a kid.
Just to prove a point.
So I had to have a kid to prove a point. No.
Yeah.
I lost the weight, right? And I I was right. As soon as you implement the discipline, you lose weight. It's really not that hard. People get a little offended by this. The easiest thing I've ever done in terms of training and just pushing myself is losing weight. It is literally, here's a line, eat below that fucking line and have your output higher than that line.
Yeah.
It is not rocket science. You literally just work out your calories, track it over a month, eat at this, and just watch the scale come down. So that was the next thing. I did a few consults with a bodybuilder, and I just picked his brain. I'm like, what should I do? You tell me how to do it. He told me what to do regarding calorie tracking, output, what kind of training to do, how much walking to do. And that's when I developed my enjoyment for actually walking. It's something that I just never did, right? So just basic movement, general activity each day, I always neglected. I never walked. I was lazy as shit around the house because I just justified it by going, I exercise all the time. I train hard. I don't need to do this. I train hard. I'm not lazy, but I was lazy, right? Just in terms of what I did. Then I realized, hang on, if I just walk more each day, vacuum, and just eat a little less, your weight just comes off.
There's your cardio.
It's fucking easy. Yeah, you literally don't need to train that hard. You could probably do 4 to 5, depending on the individual, resistance training sessions for 45 to 60 minutes, walk, watch what you eat, and you'll have a great physique. Like, you really don't need to do that much, right? If you want to look a certain way, put on a lot of muscle, you got to eat hard and obviously take performance enhancers. That's something a lot of people have asked me as well in the past. If it's something I've ever done or will do, I've never done it. I'm 75 kilos and 6 foot tall, so they're pretty shit performance enhancers. But I'll be honest, like once I've had a second kid and there's like, that element of risk to like your hormones and testosterone and testicles and all that, I'll probably, maybe when I'm 40, I might do some testosterone replacement therapy. People talk about all the time, they drink, they take cocaine so they can go up and talk to a girl so they have confidence, right? That's their performance enhancer.
Yeah.
If I want to feel good when I'm 40 and look good, why not dabble in it? I don't see a problem with it. I'm not competing in anything. If I ended up competing in a sport, like I said, I'm an honest person. I like to act with integrity. I wouldn't do it. But if I'm just training, enjoying it, why not fucking look jacked, eh?
Yeah, I've been in the same boat. Like, I've just had my second kid, and the when I've learned more about TRT and stuff like that, you're just like, okay. For me, it actually becomes then it's when you can't get someone pregnant. What's it called? Why am I blanking on it?
Infertile.
Shooting blanks, infertile.
Basically, yeah, it makes you shoot blanks. Basically, apparently. So I was just like, well, sweet. No, yeah. Well, basically, it's a contraceptive. That's the word. That was what I was after. Yeah. So basically, like, apparently, when you're on TRT and stuff, basically, it's a contraceptive in itself. So I was like, ideal. So I won't be getting another kid just now, and I can experiment with training and see actually what it feels like. But it's definitely something that I've thought. And again, being completely honest, by the time, say, about 40, if you do want to think, do you know what? Let me see what a little bit extra can give me and what it feels like, and go from there. Yeah. But I think, especially because it is becoming spoken about more and more, and it's becoming more accessible to people, and I think people are then starting to maybe learn a little bit more about it, and also then it's not got such a taboo about it now, just like a lot of things, like how we're developing everything in the industry.
I think it's like the intent behind it as well, right? Yeah. So let's say you get into it, you train hard, you eat well, you're sleeping well, and you go, why not? This is something I invest a lot of time into. I'm healthy. I want to feel that little bit better. I want to see sort of what I can do with a little bit of extra help,
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the people that want to sleep 4 hours a day. They don't want to train and they just want to cut corners and take that. That's the issue I have with it, because in society now, and how do I say this without sounding fucking mean?
Just put it out. We say it as it is. Just say it as it is.
Okay, as is. All right, so mental health is so prevalent, right? In my opinion, it's the most over fucking diagnosed thing, and people just need to sack up, right? And they like to hold on to things like a shield as to why they haven't achieved something or why they're not able to do something. And I can't achieve this or do this because of my genes, or because I've got a kid, or I've got to work. No, you can't do it because you don't fucking try hard enough, right? So the TRT thing, people 100% will just take it, sit on the lounge and think that they're going to look good and perform well, but it's just simply not the case. And that's my gripe with, like, at the end of the day, say like people in CrossFit and sport, they cheat, right? Everyone knows it. But in saying that, they're separating themselves from the top 1%. You know what I mean? Like, they can't get to where they are without doing it. So yes, they are cheating, and that's the wrong thing to do. And in sport, you're not allowed. There's a rule. That's it. But you can't negate all the hard work. They're still dedicating a shitload of time, So people just sort of think they'll sit back and get all these results, and it's not the case. So if you invest all the time into your health and that, and you're like, I just want to do that last little bit and see what I can do, but otherwise I'm also against it. So I'm pro for it in some realms and against it in others, if that makes sense.
I think if it's just a personal journey that you're just interested by, and as you say, you're not competing against others, and it does not affect anyone else in any way, then I think you crack on and see how you feel. Because especially if it's like when you've been training for as long as you have, and it's like, do you know what? How much better can I push now getting into my later years? Old man strength is a thing. So, you focus on start getting even stronger. It's great.
Yeah. And you'll feel good, as well. Because your testosterone's here, you'll feel like you're 16 again. Well, in my case, 20. Nothing happened.
Late puberty. So Matt, I want to wind it back a little bit, back to the CrossFit days. What do you think it was that had you so good at CrossFit in that regional period? About like what was giving you the edge to get, like contesting for a podium spot after a couple of years of just doing CrossFit in the garage with your mates, pretty much?
Yeah, I think it probably would have been just my background, like my athleticism. Because how I describe to my members, if you are more athletic and you are strong, the physicality of an exercise is less for you. Therefore, you're not working as hard, and therefore you don't have to output as much energy, and you don't have to fatigue as much, in a sense, right? So let's just use a 1RM, for example. Let's say my 1RM snatch is 120 and yours is 90. And the workout has 70 kilo snatches in it. It's significantly less for me. I don't have to try as hard. So even when it helps you mentally, because you go, hold on, doesn't matter how tight I am, I'm not going to fail this. Like this 50 wall balls, it's 9 kilos. If I'm just not a big pussy, I can hang on to this, Yeah. Whereas someone else, they're working hard. They've got a reason to put it down. So that's one thing. And that's probably the main thing, to be honest. I don't know. I don't class myself as being mentally that strong. I guess being able to do the things I talked about before, people would disagree. Like, I just don't, how do I explain it? I don't find it that hard to, like, not eat that food and lose weight, or eat that amount of food and lose weight. It's just like, I decided I'm going to do it, and so I just do it. Do you get what I mean? Like, it's not it's not that
strong
big,
willpower.
It's not that. Yeah, it's not that big a deal to me. So once I decide I'm going to do it, I have to prove to myself that it can be done, And so I just train on. But I don't really know. I guess it's just the athleticism to some degree, and just the ability to sort of keep showing up each day. I've trained hard since I was like 9 years old, man. So it's just normal. Yeah, I started going to the gym when I was 10 years old, maybe.
Blimey.
Wow.
Yeah, doing it for athletics, nothing heavy, but my athletics coach, again, I've had the opportunity to work with some high level coaches from a young age. My athletics coach was the Australian Olympic coach at the time. So I was in the gym, yeah, and I was training with the Nigerians and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I've always been in good company, you know.
Mm.
So yeah, so I just sort of been around high level people, training high level exercises. Yeah, no, I don't know. I've just sort of been dragged along as well, you know.
I get what you mean. Yeah, I think it's basically like having a great base of sporting background and broad physical skills that then when you
Yeah,
put that into the sphere of CrossFit, the CrossFit skills fell quite naturally into the type of athleticism that you had
yeah,
already developed. And I
yeah,
think I prefer that way around as well, in that I think sport should precede CrossFit and gym style training because they're much more useful skills. Like if you can run, change direction, throw,
yeah.
all those things, you will be good at the gym. But if you
Mm.
just gym, you might not be good at those things. And
Correct. That was
yeah, go on.
that was one of my. You asked me in the email why I sort of moved away from CrossFit. So here's another answer. One of the one of the things I noticed, I think people have improved a lot now. But there was one video I saw, and it was Jason Khalipa and Chris Spieler. Right? And they're at the CrossFit Games, both real fit, you know, talented. But it just put me off big time. They couldn't throw a baseball.
Oh,
That was one
yeah.
of the.
Yeah.
Right? It was like 5 meters wide, and they had to throw it for distance, right? And they couldn't throw. And I was like, what the hell?
Mm.
These guys are claiming they're the fittest on earth, and I get it. It's made up of a broad range of skills. I understand the 10 elements of fitness that Glassman created and whatnot, and behind the methodology behind it. But I was like, you can't throw. Half of them like can't. They just couldn't play sport, and I was like,
Mm.
what the hell is going on here? You know, you can get away with just doing these hideous cleans. Like the movement wasn't that good back then.
No.
Then people like Froning and Fraser and stuff came along, and they're playing gridiron and they're doing different things. But to further my point, the thing that annoyed me about CrossFit in the end, it didn't evolve. The business itself did. Very intelligent. Let me explain why. They do a speed clean ladder, right? Put a stopwatch on it. The speed clean ladder can't be compared to that of a weightlifter. So they're doing 4 lifts in a short time period, and they're sending weight. And everyone goes, holy shit, it starts at this and it ends up at this, and they're cleaning 160. To me, from a background in athletics and whatnot, I understand like how impressive specificity is. And so someone doing 190 at that weight and someone doing 160, there's a massive gap those last 30 kilos, yeah? All right, so they figured out a way to make themselves look really, really impressive, but not doing the actual sport, right? So let's do a shuttle run with a few hurdles. We can't compare that to a person on the track, and we're not going to put them on the track and make them run 100 because we're claiming they're the fittest person on earth, and they're going to run 13 seconds in 100, right? And then the gymnastics. Let's do a kipping, handstand, push-up, and so we'll make it a deficit now rather than take the wall away. So therefore, they're going deep for this many reps, but they don't have to balance. Or they do a handstand walk, but put in a 1 meter square. They're allowed to kick up and shuffle around, and they get their time. But majority of them can't actually hold a straight line handstand. Right? So they get the element of, look at these guys handstand walking, handstand over obstacles. But once you get to a certain point, like strength-wise, that handstand ramp is fucking nothing. It's like, without sounding arrogant, it is not hard. If you are strong enough and you kick up and you arch, you're in a push-up position, every guy can almost get up and down those stairs. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's not that much harder, but to the naked eye or sort of naive people that aren't at their level, they're just wowed by it. And like, so they should. I'm not knocking it at all. I'm just saying once you understand how things, you know, differ in terms of like impressive skills, some of the stuff they're doing isn't that impressive. And I don't want to sound arrogant, but that's just the way it is, right? And it is impressive, though, how hard they can push their bodies, man. 4 to 6 hours of that a day and just grinding and doing those reps under the level of fatigue. You got to admire that, because that is not fun. That is something I've never enjoyed doing. And, they do it day after day, and for a lot of them, for no money.
Yeah.
So that's another reason you sort of went away from it, because to me personally, I started to lose interest. I'm like, I'm not learning anything. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not actually progressing athletically. What am I going to go from doing 25 ring muscle ups in 2 years to doing 27? Like, what's the matter? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Something we like to ask our guests, Matt, is what is fitness to you? So considering CrossFit has its definition of the 10 key physical skills, the way they program to test those obviously isn't quite hitting the mark for what you choose as your definition of fitness. What is it to you to keep progressing in your athleticism? What domains do you view that through?
So I think they've actually done a good job in terms of general population. Like, they lift weights, they're working on coordination, their balance, they're doing strength work, they're doing a lot of cardiovascular endurance. Do I think the amount that some gyms program within an hour is necessary for general population? No, I don't. That's why they do inherit a lot of injuries and have that reputation. But I think they've done a great job in terms of the broad range of skills, because for most people, they're becoming more athletic than they ever would have been, right? To me, though, I just think being able to sprint is a good one. When you can sprint, you can jump. When you can jump, a snatch and a plyometric isn't so difficult anymore. When you can snatch, you can squat, you can bench press. Once you can pull a weight from the ground that's a decent weight, you can do a body weight movement. Once you can do a handstand or a handstand push-up, even freestanding, you don't need to train a dip. You don't need to train this. There's an expression in gymnastics like buy one, get one free, right? Meaning you train one skill and you get another. So let's say I train a one-arm chin-up and a front lever. I don't need to train muscle-ups. I'm going to be able to do one. You know what I mean? So So for terms of me, right, and being athletic, gymnastics is one, sprinting is one. And if you can do that, the person that can sprint in 11 seconds, do a one-arm chin-up and deadlift 2.5, 3 times their body weight is always going to be able to get on a ski erg and do 15 calories and do 15 burpees 5 times. But the person that can do 15 calories on a ski and 15 burpees 5 times can't do the other things.
Yeah.
So that's why I've headed down that route. I haven't done much of it lately, but I'll go back to it for sure, because it's when I felt my best.
It's funny when the way you've spoken about like your training, as like I see for my whole training, say career, I mean, not to the level that you have done, but the way I've kind of broadened my training. I started out in like bodybuilding and stuff like that. I was never in any team sports. It was like I wish I did as a kid, but unfortunately I didn't. And so as I started out in the gym, but then getting into CrossFit after bodybuilding actually opened my eyes to sports and like stuff that I could try and get. But what that kind of taught me, it then taught me to dive into gymnastics more. It told me then to dive into, like, say, triathlon stuff. And I felt what CrossFit taught me was a great body awareness, which I never really had as a kid. So now, even when I'm trying to do anything, I understand where I am in space and time. So I can attribute I'm very happy with, I can pretty much do anything I ask my body to do at a decent strength level, because CrossFit chucked so many different things at me. And I think where I was around 23, 24, when I started playing around with CrossFit, I had about 4 years of doing it before I specialized into certain areas and stuff. And it was great. I think that, but your thing of throwing the baseball thing, I remember seeing those things on YouTube, and it's like when I saw when Froning was trying to win the games and he couldn't climb the rope. It's like going back to that one. They say, how can you have the fittest person not be able to climb a rope? He has to be able to, otherwise it's just, you can't have that. And I think you're right. And the CrossFit skills of actually, having sport in it and, having fun with training, I think has been forgotten about now. It's got way too serious, and everyone is trying to do all these high level gymnastics or high level skills when it's like they've taken away the fun of it, because it's so now it's so competitive, and training needs to be fun, obviously at progressive overload and all that shit, but like generally you need to be having fun with it to be able to keep turning up. That's kind of what you, by the sounds of your training, that's what you've done. You've adapted on the fly, you've changed to different things, and when you're enjoying it, you crack on and do it. But then when it starts to either get boring or your body says, not now anymore, you take a little bit of a detour and move on to something else.
Yeah, so like the hard thing for me is once I start something, and the people I watch on like the internet and social media and that, I start like human nature comparing myself. I want to learn this, and so I want to get good at it. So I feel like sometimes I neglect the playful nature of it, and I have to remind myself every now and then, just go down and you don't have to do 4 sets of 5, 3 sets of 8. You don't have to do 3 sets of 200s with 3 minutes rest. You can do some plyometrics, do some fast 120s. Like what I've learned as I've got older is, and I say this to my members all the time too at the gym, your muscle doesn't know if you're doing a bench press or you're doing a push-up. It's just working resistance, right? If you're doing a heavy weighted dip because on the day you're like, oh, I'm just going to do 8 reps, right? I want to see what I can do for 8 reps. Your body doesn't know you're on a dip bar compared to on a bench press or doing a dumbbell press. It's just working hard. Like you said, yes, progressive overload and all that's important, but I don't think, and this is what I've sort of learned as I'm getting older, I don't think all that stuff is as important as you make out, when you're younger. You think you've got to stick to these training protocols. But let's just say, for instance, I was 78 kilos doing CrossFit, right? 78, 79, lifting weights, clean and jerk, like clean 150 and everything. I didn't do bodybuilding, but my muscles were obviously quite conditioned, right? I was obviously had a decent amount of muscle. Then I've gone, when I'm doing the bodybuilding style, when I'm putting on weight, and I sorry, my son's knocking on the door.
So cool.
I get in here. So then you do the bodybuilding and you're thinking, oh, this is the way, this is what bodybuilders do, this is the way to get my muscle big. Look at some of the CrossFitters. They're jacked as anything. Doesn't matter if they're doing CrossFit, gymnastics. Look at a gymnast in the Olympics. Look at a sprinter. They barely do any weights, but they all just train hard, eat well, and their bodies have just conditioned from years of training. I don't think it so much matters what you do as long as you consistently train.
Yeah.
And I think sleep's a big one and food's a big one. Like you guys were asking me, you just asked me before what my interpretation of health is. I'm no means a hippie. The whole ice bath thing, to me, I'm like, why are normal people sitting in an ice bath?
I love it.
What are you recovering from?
I'm not doing it recovery way. For me at the moment, it is because I'm actually on my own fat loss journey at the moment again. Because since basically having kids, it's like I've always found that excuse. So when you're saying about members, you're talking to me like you don't know what it's like to diet. I've dieted down to stepping on stage. I know how to do it. I've done it before, but it's been a long time since I've done it. And what I've actually found myself, it's more of it. It's now something that's just maintaining discipline. So beyond that, it's like at the end of the day, I get in there. It's for no performance, none of all those little benefits you get from it. It's purely just grow a pair and get in it. That's it. That is the only reason that I'm doing it, to give me that, and it's it has given me that little edge for me at the moment.
Yeah, so that's why again it comes back to that intent, right?
Yeah,
you're going in there. You're like, I'm pushing myself, so 100%. I'll get in an ice bath. I'll sit in a sauna.
Just don't be a pussy.
I'll go run 50 sandhills in 40-degree heat because I'm like, other people aren't doing this. Let's see if I have the ability to push myself there. If you're getting in there instead of training, because that's going to help you learn to calm yourself down and control your breathing. No, you're still going to fucking dog it on the air bike. You're going to dog it. You have to put yourself, right? So that's why I don't really like it. In terms of people doing it after training all the time, essentially when you're doing weight training, my philosophy, what are you attempting to do? You're trying to tear the muscle, right? And then it bleeds and then it recovers. And it recovers bigger so that it doesn't tear again. It's all these little micro tears and then it repeats, right? So that you don't go through that trauma again. When you sit in an ice bath or you ice something, you are preventing inflammation to a degree.
Yep.
That's what it's for. That's why you ice. So after a strength session when everything's bleeding and it wants to repair and you're hopping in an ice bath, I don't know the degree. Again, it's placebo and to a degree. All those things are placebo, right? If you want to get an ice bath that makes you feel good, 100% go for it. I don't think the degree of inflammation it stops will bring down your strength gains. But I prefer heat, so I like sitting in a sauna. But in saying that, same thing. If you go sit in a sauna all the time and you think it's going to make you a better athlete, and you're training twice a week, again, it's not doing anything, So with all that stuff, I think it's just personal preference, and I also think it's very much a waste of time if you aren't sleeping at least 7.5, 8.5 hours. And you aren't eating good and you drink alcohol. Like, what is the point of sitting in an ice bath and sitting in a sauna if you sleep 6 hours? You're not recovering. Like, you may as well not, That's I'm definitely not one of those hippie fucking people in the slightest. And I will not put a pair of yellow glasses on or blue glasses on at night to go to bed. Like, what are you doing?
I love it.
Like, if I was an athlete, 100%, I'll do any little thing to give myself an edge, right? Aside from cheating, of course, and taking. But like the last couple of years, I used to just eat a lot of junk, right? People go, oh, you've always been lean. But because I've always been lean, it didn't matter, right? But once I started to educate myself around food, and not to the point of inflammation and my guts, and I'm not gluten intolerant and lactose intolerant. I think people create all these problems for themselves and just carry on, to be honest. Just a bunch of weirdos. But once I started educating myself, because I needed to learn what was in food to do the cow deficit, I started to enjoy how I felt. And I mentioned, the walking as well. I'm like, how is this? I get up in the morning, spend time with my kid, take him for a walk. I go to the park. He plays. I'm getting exercise. I eat a fraction less food. Well, when I say a fraction less, I used to just eat brownies and ice cream every night, fast food, whatever. I ate well as well, but I just eat that. And you just go hold on, that's 1,000 calories. If I just eat a nice bit of chicken and a wrap at home, that's 500 calories. Now all of a sudden I'm dropping body fat. I feel good. I don't have to train as hard. I walk instead, and you get leaner. It's the best. So in terms of health for me, I'm just doing what we are all supposed to do. It's not rocket science, That's why people are oh, what are you doing? You've got to be doing this special exercise. You've got to be doing this. Everyone knows, as adults, everyone knows the answer to their question. You might not know the intricacies of a macronutrient, but if you eat meat, vegetables, fruit, and you don't have alcohol and eat junk food, and you walk and you go to sleep at night at a reasonable time, you're going to lose weight. You're going to feel good. It's literally not that hard. It's very simple, to be honest with you.
Matt, one thing I wanted to jump back to on the training side, in terms of the things that we're supposed to do, I loved what you said about the person who sprints will be able to do the other things in the gym. And what I thought when you said that was, that's essentially distilled GPP, in that what are the minimum set of exercises and the minimum type of training that enable the most other physical skills. Because you can say CrossFit in the open, there's a about 40 movements that they might test, which is a lot compared to most training systems. Could we boil that down to a smaller number of movements that would actually get that 2-for-1 style benefit of gymnastics? Like, what would you say is the minimum syllabus that a well-functioning human should be able to do?
Well, it's a funny one, right? Because let's say I was talking to someone about this the other day. Let's say my mobility is average, right? I don't have the best mobility, but if you put me under a bit of weight, I can then snatch it, right? Because the load's pushing me down. So I'd consider myself being able to snatch, but my squat's not that good, right? Like a young kid squats way better than mine, but he can't snatch. So it's funny, right? How long do you spend on each thing, and how good do you want to get at each thing?
Yep.
I mean, bang for your buck. If you can do a snatch, if you can do some strict pull-ups and handstand and run decent, you can therefore row, you can ski, because you can handstand, you no doubt, and you have a decent like strict pull-up, you no doubt have the upper body strength in bent arm pulling and pushing to do dips, so you wouldn't have to train them. So if you just did a handstand, you develop the stability overhead, which would transfer over to your jerk, your push press, your strict press, all that type of stuff. You do the snatch, so you develop the athleticism and the coordination to be able to do a clean, do a jerk, because you'd understand the concept of moving under a bar. So if I just pick 3 just off the top of my head without thinking about it, probably a snatch, and then 2 gymnastics movements. So I'm going to go 4. A pull-up, a handstand, and then just probably middle distance even. That sort of 200 to 800 realm, because I felt I did middle distance a bit when I was young, and if you can run 400, right, and 800, you have the ability to push for longer at a slower speed, So, but 100 runner not so much. But if you can cop a 400 and an 800, you can run a 10K. It's uncomfortable, but you can do it, So that would be my thing. Yeah, middle distance, pull up, handstand, and snatch for sure. Because you can box jump, then you can kettlebell swing, you can dumbbell snatch. Like if you can do a kettlebell swing, doesn't mean you can snatch. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
I think as fitness has become almost overcomplicated, more people are asking that question of like, but what do I actually need to do? Like there's so many things I could be doing. There's so many movements I could be training and investing time into. But I prefer the thought of what are the really important big rocks that we need to get in the jar first, which actually enable me to do everything I want to do and have the most transferability, rather than working on this really niche skill that is only good for the purpose of doing that niche skill and doesn't let me throw a ball, for example. And something you said, I saw on Instagram, I made a note of because I liked it, was that in CrossFit, they don't do other sports because it will show how bad they are at the sports. And that reminded me when you said that, throwing the baseball incident. Are there any sport-specific tests you would like to see in CrossFit, like maybe more ball throwing, other athletic endeavors? Like, what would you like to see them tested? Because in your eyes, that's a great test of athleticism that isn't currently in CrossFit.
There's a guy, Blaine McConnell. You heard of him?
No.
He was in the grid league and everything. He does CrossFit, but anyway, he's done the bobsled route, and he's a big, powerful guy, like clean and jerks 200, fast on the track, probably like 11-second kind of speed. Like he's an athletic guy. And I was chatting to him. He said the same thing. He goes, when are they going to put them on a track and make them run 100 meters or 400? Put them on a track, make them run the distance. Let's see. They run every week. They're on an air runner. Put them on a track and make them run. And just get it done. Who cares? I'd respect it more, and everyone will understand it if they aren't Olympic sprinters, and they're carrying all that weight and muscle mass. So no one's expecting it, but let's just see what they can do. I hate swimming. I'm a shit swimmer, but put them in a pool and make them swim a distance, They do 15 or 16 events. at the CrossFit Games and they can't do one where they just put them in one individual event. They do a swim around a buoy, a paddleboard, this and that. It's kind of like that Ironman triathlon route, but it isn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just like to see a bit more of that. And honestly, from a spectator point of view, how much better would it be watching them on a track, 100-meter race or a 400?
Yeah.
That is way more entertaining than watching them run around obstacles on a grass field. Like, in terms of...
It's interesting, you know, the when they had like the sprint event not too long ago, and it wasn't just a straight line what they had to run either. It was like they had a slight kink, didn't they? It was like a mass start, so there's a bunch of them. So it's like, and it's funny now that you've kind of highlighted it to me. They kind of do everything, but not quite. So you can't fully compare apples with apples. They compare oranges with apples. So it's, as you say, it's kind of the same, but not quite.
Yeah. So they put them on a track and they go, hold on. Like, this guy runs 10.7, you know, and this guy who looks like this, who's the number one in our sport, runs 13. It's not the best look. They put a few obstacles to run around. The 11-second runner gets to the obstacle. He might be a little bit quicker in between, but he slows down. It bridges the gap between the two. All of a sudden, oh, look at the guy that's the 11-second runner. Look at our number one athlete. He almost beat the 11-second runner.
Yeah.
Sprint, not a sprint. It's two different fucking things, you know? Like, I mean, it's just, that's what I said. They've done a great job at promoting their business and making it look impressive. And it is impressive in its own way. But in the specific realm, it's not so impressive, you know? And people get all hurt about that. When I say that, you know, because they're diehard CrossFitters. It's like when you're not a vegan, you know, or a carnivore. You know, it's just an opinion. Like,
yeah. No, you're right. I think I would love to see that as well. And ironically, I think they might get more mainstream buy-in if people could see their sport in CrossFit, if that makes sense. So if you're a sprinter and you see sprinting in CrossFit, you're like, oh, I'm going to be really good at this. Or if you're a gymnast and there's more normal gymnastics in CrossFit, and sure, the CrossFitters might not look as good, but I think everyone can buy into their all-round athleticism more if they see them doing the standard fitness tests. Like, I'd love to see the CrossFit Games athletes do a decathlon. I think that would be awesome to see how they stack up against like actual decathletes, because that will tell us how generally physically prepared they are, because can they do these normal tests of athleticism or not? And maybe you're right, they're just trying to hide the fact that there are some gaps in the training methodology that don't enable them to do various different sports.
But rather than hide it, they should invite people from other sports in.
Yeah.
So let's say an athletics person goes in, top tier sprinter, don't have to be number one or whatever, you know. They go in and they do the sprint against a CrossFit Games athlete and smash them, you know, as expected. But everyone goes, well, look at the CrossFit athlete. They held their own. They were only 15 meters behind a top tier sprinter. Now let's see the sprinter do a CrossFit workout with the muscle ups and the dead ball and so forth. Oh, hold on. They can't even lift it or they can't do a muscle up. Think about people from outside the sport going, wow, look how well-rounded this athlete is. That's quite impressive. We now understand that they can't run like a top-tier sprinter, but they can do so many things.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I think it would bring more eyeballs in. It would make it look more impressive, and it would bring more money to the sport too. Like, I feel like the last 5 years, it has not grown in the slightest. And it might be because my interest has sort of changed slightly. But the stadium's no bigger, you know. They're still getting paid the same. They've been paying the Games athlete, the winner, 250 or 275 grand for the last 5 years. You know, I know people like my mate Khan. He's not making money from CrossFit. Yes, CrossFit has allowed him to make money. He makes money from looking fucking nice on Instagram also. Like, let's be honest, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's articulate, for one. People find him attractive, and he's a decent athlete. When I say decent, he's good, right? He makes CrossFit games, so he's good. But people follow him, and therefore you make money. There's all these fucking people that can't do anything athletically that look half decent or put up funny videos, and they're making money. So in terms of like the sport, no, it hasn't grown, in my opinion.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you're right. They would bring more money in if they brought other athletes in.
Yeah, like imagine bringing in Usain Bolt. All the athletics people are going to watch. Oh, let's see Usain smash CrossFitters. But then at the same time, they're going to go, oh, hold on. Look, these guys are quite impressive. Look what they're doing. They've done this, this, and this. Usain runs 100 meters a day, and they've done 4 events. And they've done gymnastics and this and that. And then the gymnasts too, you know, like, but they don't want to look bad initially. But I think it'll do the opposite. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. I remember. Sorry to cut you off. You go ahead, mate. It's just you finish your point.
They can even why not do a competition in or some realm like they do the Rogue event, right? And Wodapalooza, and there's big events now. Why not do an event where an athlete can enter in individual skills? So they can compete in the individual skill and get prize money or a podium finish, or you can do all of them, and that's a category. So you've got the gymnast, you've got freestanding handstand push-ups, right? And if I don't want to do it, I don't have to do that event. I can just do the sprinting, right, and something else. But if you want to be the CrossFit Games athlete or the CrossFit athlete, the well-rounded athlete, you've got to participate in more. You might not be able to do one of them, and you take an L in that event, but therefore you go, okay, well, I've got to bridge the gap between me and this skill next year. It's going to force people to do more, be a better athlete. Instead, they just keep doing the same kipping ring muscle ups all the time. Like, you guys have like watched it. Are you still interested in watching 15 ring muscle ups?
I still keep tabs on it for sure, but yeah, I don't think that I get as much out of it as I used to.
No.
Like if it's on, you look away, you watch back, you see the lead. Yeah. Your eyes aren't, wow, look at this skill. Yeah. You've seen it so many times. You know what I mean? Like, it's muscle ups with cleans, it's muscle ups with handstand push-ups, it's muscle ups with a snatch. It's still a muscle up. You know?
Yeah, spot on. I think that's a really good point about inviting other athletes in. And I thought this before. I don't know if you've heard of it. There was an old TV show in the UK called Superstars. And basically it was the best fucking show because they would just get all the top athletes from all different sports. And it was a TV show. It wasn't like a serious competition, but a lot of them took it very seriously. And each week they would have them do a random sporting test. So they might have to dribble around some cones and shoot a football into a goal. They might have to kayak for time down a river. And then one event would be the gym test. So there'd be like max dips in a minute, max squat thrusts in a minute. Yeah. And you'd get to compare people from different sports to see who was the superstar, the all-round athlete. And I think that's really what CrossFit should be. Like, you should be able to take somebody who's an American football athlete. You should be able to take somebody who's a sprinter, somebody who's a rower, and just chuck them together. And if the syllabus of tests is rounded enough, the best generally prepared athlete will win.
Oh, they all shine through,
Exactly. And like when I worked at the first CrossFit gym I worked at, I remember I pinched this off Jack, who was shadowing at the time. When he was doing the pitch to a new member, one of the things he would say is, if you had 5 athletes, so you had the 100-meter runner, you had the marathon runner, you had a javelin thrower, and you had whatever the other athletes are, each a specialist in their field. If you had all those people and you had one CrossFitter, the CrossFitter would never win any of those events, but they'd probably come second in all of them. And actually that means they are the most rounded athlete. And I think that's what it should be about. But because the sport has sort of petitioned itself away from traditional sports, that comparison has become harder. And I think bringing more traditional sport into CrossFit would actually validate it and also improve the methodology, because people would actually be able to do more of these sports, which I think is what being fit and athletic is really about. It's not about winning in the gym. It's about winning in everything else as well. That's my rant.
No, that's 100% correct. One of my mates, he's got a funny theory. He said, you watch, he goes, if someone can skate, he goes, they're a good athlete. He goes, he talks about Luke Rockhold, the UFC fighter.
Yeah.
He can skateboard, right? You watch all these people, like these athletes, and when they can skateboard, because there's so much coordination with their feet and their body, he goes, you watch someone skateboard, I guarantee you they're good at other things. And then he was like talking to me and he goes, you used to skate? And I was like, oh, yeah. And like, he's like, we started watching videos. He goes, there you go. Like, I used to drop in bowls and all that, skate on the half pipes. And he goes, I can't skate for shit. And he goes, and you're just better at those finer details, the gymnastics things. So it's funny. It's like that balance aspect and being able to move your body and control like an object, like a board as well. I find like it'd be interesting. Imagine you put a CrossFitter on a skate ramp.
Yeah.
So that would be interesting. Just a little half pipe or something, you know what I mean? See what happens. Some of them, like I said, I guarantee you Froning or something can pick up skateboarding quite quick.
Yeah.
And then some others, like no offense to him, Kalipa, I bet you he can't. Like you can just look at it. You can just look at him and just tell. You know what I mean?
Love that.
Yeah. Skateboarders, interestingly, always have massive vertical jumps as well because of the power needed in an ollie. And that again, like, is just like raw athleticism.
Yeah, that's right. And they're powerful guys, and because they're powerful, their nervous system functions well. I guarantee they can all just go over and do chin-ups.
Yeah.
It's just, they just got the ability to work, Yeah.
Amazing. I think that's a brilliant place to wrap it up. And then you've got to get on with your day and we've got to get Rob to bed. Matt, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate the chat. Lots of great information there. You mentioned your ebooks. You didn't talk about the guide to bulking because I particularly enjoyed the title of that. What's that one called?
Yeah, the Skinny Cunts Bible.
Yes.
Religious people haven't bought it.
They're lost. They're still small.
Yeah, pretty much. They were just like lockdown projects, man. In Australia, we had 2-3 month stints, 2 years in a row where we weren't allowed to open the business. That's another can of worms there. I won't go into my theory on all that. I'll get fired up on that one. So I just keep myself busy, and I thought I've got to look for ways to generate revenue. I did like an online training thing and I wrote some ebooks, but at the time I was bulking and a lot of people asked me what I did, and I thought, why not just make an ebook, Yeah. It's just my personal take on it, what I did. So whether or not people agree or disagree, it's up to them. But in essence, it just says eat more, train hard, and just keep doing that weekly. The whole thing, like, I can't put on weight. Well, you're obviously not eating enough because 80% of the world's obese. So it's not rocket science, But yeah, maybe I'll have to do the shred one next, hey?
Yeah. Well, you've done a couple of insane shreds. Who was it you did like an empathy shred? Somebody was cutting for a fight, and you're like, I'm going to do this as well.
No, so it was just funny. I was sitting around and I was doing nothing. Like it was in COVID, and the UFC and fighters do the weight cut, so the dehydration cut. So that's not so much shredding. That's just stripping the weight so you can make your fight, or if you're a power lifter, you make your weight category. So for people that don't know what I'm talking about, you strip the water weight, so you therefore weigh in at a lighter weight, and then you put the water and the carbs and stuff back in so that you are heavier and you have an advantage over someone smaller than you when you compete. So a fight got cancelled, but one of the UFC fighters that's roughly my weight, Tony Ferguson, he did the weight cut regardless because he was like, fuck it, I'm going to still keep pushing, right? Also, he's probably got a bit of CTE and brain damage, so me doing what Tony Ferguson isn't a good idea. And it's not healthy for you in the slightest. But anyway, I was like, I want to see what it feels like. Everyone talks about how miserable it is. So it was Saturday night, Sunday morning, I decided I'd do it. So you water load, and what you do is you pump water into your body. So your pancreas releases a flushing hormone. So it starts to get rid of all the water. And you start to obviously consume less food. But yeah, your body goes into flushing mode, and then you kind of stop the water and your body continues to get rid of it. So you combine that with activity. So you're sweating more and your body's also flushing it. And you can eat less. There's different ways to do it. You consume less sodium. So you hold on to less water. And different ways to get rid of the water is just exercise in clothes. But for most people, you can get in a bath, cover yourself with towels, lay on the ground. Doesn't matter. Anything sauna, just to strip the water. But I was 78.5 kilos, I think, Saturday night, Sunday morning. And Tuesday morning, I was 70.
Bloody hell.
8.5 kilos I stripped in essentially 2 days, but mostly on the last day. But you pretty much, my wife wasn't happy. She was like, why the fuck are you doing this? It's so dangerous. But she'll come past and check on me in the bath. I was like, towels on me in the bath, and she's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm all right. But you literally, you get a bit like dizzy. You have to get helped out of the bath.
Yeah.
You know, it's not healthy at all. But I just wanted to see what it felt like. So then, funnily enough, to give people some perspective, 70 kilos that morning, 70.3, because that's the lightweight limit. And by that night, I went to bed and I was 77 kilos.
Fuck.
So that's how much your body just acts as a sponge, you know?
Yeah.
Boom.
Did you drink that much water? Did you drink like 7 liters of water?
No. So you drink water, you're consuming more sodium, you're having carbs, and so your body just literally soaks it up like a sponge and holds onto it.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's guys that literally fight in the UFC and stuff in the 85 kilo category, or 84, 85, and they will be 95 to 100 by the time they step in the cage.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's why they do, and that's why ONE FC, an MMA promotion, they do like a 10% thing where you've got to weigh in. You can only be like on the day, and you can only be 10% more than what you were, or something along those lines. You can't dehydrate yourself. You can't do a weight cut. So you have to fight at your own weight, pretty much. And so therefore the fights generally are pretty good because they're not dehydrated. So they're not, they're not fighting compromise, and everyone's the same size. So all it does is everyone still fights the same person.
Yeah.
They just fight at a healthy weight. So
exactly,
it's just, yeah. But so that is different to the losing the fat one.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Because I've had girls before, so I can just do that. I'm like, you could do that to a certain degree if you have a night out and you want to look good and you want to, manipulate how you look. But it only works if you have a decent, like a good body fat percentage,
Yeah.
They're looking good in terms of photos and stuff. People that want to put up photos on Instagram and, or look good at an event. If you've got body fat, none of this shit works.
Yeah.
Like, so, yeah.
Well, it's the classic thing people do before a holiday, and then as soon as they smell a beer or nibble on a hot dog, then they just bloat out and all the hard work is undone.
Straight out again. The like everyone says, when you look your best, you actually feel your worst. So bodybuilders, when they're up on stage, they feel like absolute shit, right? And then within a day or so, they'll look good for a day or two. They'll be vascular. They've had carbs. They've had fat. The muscle is expanded, like a balloon. But then quite quickly, if you're not disciplined, you'll start putting on fat pockets, different parts of your body. You can't stay that lean, and if you do stay that lean, you're a boring cunt. You ain't eating anything good. You aren't doing anything. You know what I mean? It's like, and to be honest, I'm quite boring these days. The things I enjoy, like putting my son on the bike, going for long bike rides, I enjoy training. I like going for walks and that now with friends and my wife and my son. I don't really drink anymore. It's just like the cost of it and how you feel. It's just not a priority for me. So therefore, because I'm not drinking, I'm doing all the other things. I'm eating better and doing all that stuff. So it's sort of like, just a correlating effect. And you can probably tell by my personality, if I do drink, I'm just getting absolutely hammered.
Yeah.
And for 3 days, I'm just like a piece of shit, So I try avoid it as much as possible.
I love that. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Love it.
Brilliant. Matt, thank you so much again. Where can people find out more about you? What are your links to get the ebooks and stuff?
I don't even know what my Instagram is. I think it's Matty Healy with an underscore.
We'll have it in a bit below.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, Matty Healy, my gym. I put up way more educational content on there. Don't Die Wondering Fitness. And that's it. I think there's a few random videos on YouTube from years ago. They want to see a few things. CrossFit. There's a CrossFit video on there, 158 friend that I did, lingering around.
Blimey.
Yeah, but I don't upload that much, to be honest. So they search my name, they won't find anything too good.
Just Skinny Cunt's Bible.
Yeah, Skinny Cunt's Bible, and pay for it. It's only $25. Why not? So if you are a skinny cunt and you're not getting any chicks, buy it.
Yes. Brilliant. Excellent. Cheers, mate. Thank you very much.
So much.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Likewise. Catch you soon.
Thank you, Matt. That was very funny. I really enjoyed that chat. That was it was hard. I was I had to wake up because I fell asleep before the podcast started because it was late. 8 p.m. I mean, I was getting an early night, but it was well worth waking up for. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So thank you very much again for coming on. I did love the fact how you are able to adapt on the fly, and when you're ready to move on to something else, that you just say, right, okay, I'm now going to focus here because my body's not necessarily wanting to be there now, and so forth. And I found a lot of similarities in kind of like how I've focused on my training over the years and kind of how I've had certain thoughts and kind of move from one to the next through either just once or how my body's kind of telling me to. So we hope you enjoyed that episode as much as we did. As always, you can head over to YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube channel to support the show. Just search Lunge and Lift, or you can leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. But as always, thank you very much for tuning in each week. Really do appreciate you and sharing the message. So again, we'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.